Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Richard James Rogers. He is an award-winning author, corporate trainer, and workshop leader. And we learn from him proven strategies for effective knowledge transfer, public speaking mastery, and agile project management, showing how teaching skills can create multiple income streams and career opportunities. Welcome to the show, Richard.
Thank you, AJ. It's a pleasure to be here.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to discuss right now. We'll be talking about how one can transform their teaching skills into business success. But before we come to this, Richard, let's understand a bit about your background, your journey, so that people know who they are listening to.
Absolutely, AJ. So I graduated from Bangor University in the UK in 2005 with a degree in molecular biology. And I then went on to do a PGCE so that I could become a secondary school science and mathematics teacher. Shortly after teaching for about 2 years in the UK, I moved to Thailand to teach at international schools over here. And then in 2015, I wrote a book which really catalogued all of my experiences so far as an educator in bite-sized, readable, practical, usable chunks that everyday teachers could apply very easily to their practice. And the reason I did this was actually because I was getting really good results in the classroom with my students. I, for some reason, was able to engage students who would normally be quite disruptive and who would be quite distracted normally. And other teachers were telling me that students really loved my lessons. So I wanted to catalog and record all of the strategies that I'd been using over the years, really as a reference book just for me to read and to remind myself. But when it was published, it became a huge success. The second edition of that book won the Reader's Favorite Bronze Medal for nonfiction in 2020. And following the publication of the book, AJ, I set up my blog for teachers at richardjamesrogers.com. So that's been going for nearly 10 years now. And then my podcast, which is called Practical Teaching Tips with Richard James Rogers. And then following all of that, I've been doing corporate training workshops here in Bangkok, Thailand, mainly in public speaking skills, which teachers naturally develop in their careers, project management, particularly agile project management, and also train the trainer corporate training. So that's where I go into companies and I teach their corporate trainers how to engage their adult learners and their corporate teams. Yes, and that about sums it up.
Right, Richard. So I want to understand for the audience, that you have successfully transitioned from classroom teaching to also corporate training. So what main teaching principles have proven very valuable to you in this whole business part of the things that you do nowadays?
That's a great question. Mainly, it's incorporating a wide variety of tasks and activities into the corporate training sessions and into the lessons. All too often, what I see, AJ, with corporate trainers is they use PowerPoint slides so often, and they're just running slide after slide after slide for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and the slides are crammed with information. And what every learner needs, whether they're adults or their children, is they need variety within those lessons. So one of the big things that I encourage my learners and my corporate trainers to use are live quiz apps. So you may have heard of Kahoot, for example, AJ, but that's just one example. There are many live quiz apps available today. Things like Blookit, Quizlet Live, Rolljack, quizzes, and so on. And then, of course, getting students to move around the classroom. That's called spatial learning, and really just getting students to engage with the content through movement. So a good example, AJ, would be if I was to ask the class true or false, the sky is blue. Let's use a simple question. And I ask everyone to put their hand up. That's a very simple engagement task. But what's even better is you can choose one wall of the classroom to be true, one wall to be false, and the students stand up and they move to the position that represents true or false. So that's called spatial learning. So I would say live quiz apps and educational technology, AJ, very crucial. Spatial learning, which is getting students to move as they learn new concepts, and really just being mindful of including variety, wide variety of activities in your lessons.
Right. So, tell us a bit about how you built from a teaching job uh, to now fully into this whole corporate training, educational consultancy, if we can call it. So how did you transition? I am asking this because there are lots of teachers everywhere, including in India, and the maximum a lot of people can think of is to put a course on any of the platforms and wait for it to sell. But there is I'm sure a lot that can be done, that they are expert, that they know about things, they know about students, and children. So what is it that they can do? Through your example, I want to bring out your expertise so that others can also use their teaching skills into making a better quality of life for themselves.
That's a great question, AJ, and thank you for asking it, because I've got a few very important, crucial tips that I can pass on. Firstly, your reputation matters dramatically. If you want to transition from a teacher into a business owner, corporate trainer, or to have a really good side hustle. So in my case, and I think this can be applied to many teachers, I started the blog where I wrote articles that provide tips for other teachers and advice. And I shared that on social media widely over many years. And I think one advantage that teachers have today that we didn't have 20 years ago, and it's often not seen as an advantage, but it actually is that we live in a social media age. And if you're clever, what you can do is you can really build up your online portfolio so that you become quite famous, actually. Through blogging is a good idea, through podcasting, through social media posts. I've reached a stage now, AJ, where if you type my full name on Google, Richard James Rogers, a knowledge box will come up. So I'm actually Google famous now. So step one is to build up your reputation online through blogs, podcasts, interviews like what I'm doing with you now, AJ, and offering advice. On LinkedIn, for example, you can contribute to articles on LinkedIn, and that will give you credibility as well. And the second stage, and this took me a long time to learn, AJ, but the second stage is you have to do it with other people. You can't do it on your own. There's a phrase that I love, and the phrase is your network is your net worth. So your network is your net worth. It's kind of a play on the phrase, it's not what you know, it's who you know that matters. And in my case, I joined a professional network here in Thailand called the British Chamber of Commerce. And through that network, I got the idea to provide these corporate training workshops. And I also got the contacts to do that as well. So that led into my whole new business now of being a corporate trainer, a workshop leader, and an educational consultant. So I would say, AJ, to summarize, it's build up your reputation online, get to know people by joining professional networks, and offer advice through any means you can, blogs, podcasts, writing on LinkedIn, and so on.
Right, right, Jay. Right, Richard. So I want to understand then common mistakes people make when they're trying to transfer knowledge, whether in classroom or even in corporate settings.
Yes, there's many mistakes that people make. The most common one that I see, AJ, is when trainers and teachers are using slide presentations, okay? Slides have been around for about 30 years now, if you think about the genesis of Microsoft PowerPoint. And they've remained popular because they are so effective. They're a good technology. But the problem is that most teachers and trainers, they put too much text on the slides so that the audience are overwhelmed with information. There's not enough images on the slides. The text is often too small. The colors are not effective and not readable. So the way to fix that is I always recommend to put a maximum of 3 sentences per slide, if possible. Make the text large, use images. And then there's, following on from that, AJ, there's the process of dual coding. Now, what is dual coding? Dual coding is when we use good visuals with good verbals. So what that means is when you do have a good slide or a good visual or a good infographic or a good diagram or whatever it is you're showing your audience, you need to couple that with very clear, very loud enough at least, and slow verbals. So things need to be explained clearly, slowly, and loud enough for everyone to hear. And another thing, kind of on that point as well, AJ, one thing that teaching internationally has taught me is that I need to speak English in a way that everyone can understand. And that means I have to reduce my accent. Now, I come from North Wales in the UK, and we have very strong accents in North Wales. And if I was to speak to my students in the same way I speak to people in my hometown, they wouldn't understand me. So we have to modify our accents, speak loudly, speak clearly, use good visuals with good verbals. That's called dual coding, and not cram our slides with so much information, and really be mindful of that.
Absolutely. Great tips here, Richard. Now let's come to your book, The Quick Guide to Classroom Management. So tell us a bit about this book. You mentioned about it, but tell us a bit more in detail. Who is this whole book for?
Well, the book is aimed for high school teachers and middle school teachers. So that's anyone teaching students from age 11 upwards. But actually, a lot of my readers are telling me that the tips also apply to adult teachers. So anyone who's teaching in the corporate sector, for example, and also to upper primary school teachers. So anyone who's teaching children ages 8, 9, 10, and 11, for example. And the book is broken up into 45 little secrets. So it's in these little bite-sized chunks. And they really focus on building rapport with students, how to use praise effectively, how to manage behavior, how to use technology and IT in the classroom, how to work with parents, how to work with colleagues. And there's also a bonus chapter at the end about international teaching. So it really is an all-in-one guidebook for any teacher who wants practical, usable, highly, highly accessible tips for use straight away in the classroom.
Right, right. There is much to learn from you and understand from you, Richard, about all these things. And I'm sure a lot of people would learn from your book. What about the podcast? You mentioned your podcast. So what can people learn from podcast? This is one episode you are doing from me with me, but in your podcast, you will have many important, very useful episodes for our listeners.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that, AJ. My podcast is called Practical Teaching Tips with Richard James Rogers. Most of the time, my podcast is just me speaking. So I don't usually interview people. I am trying to do more interviews in the future, but it's usually me describing one aspect of teaching that matters to educators and providing those practical, highly accessible tips. Most of the time, my podcast follows my blog. So if I've written a blog post about something, I will then do a podcast episode about that same topic, so that my followers are getting information verbally and in written format as well. And I'm on episode number 125 now. So I've done quite a few, and I plan to keep going and keep doing that.
Absolutely, you plan to keep going and keep doing that. Any other plan? Any plans for any other book in the future?
Yes, I'm going to. I'm in the middle actually of making a book all about public speaking tips. Public speaking has been identified as a top 10 corporate skill by Forbes magazine many years in a row now. And what a lot of employers and business leaders are telling people is that public speaking is really crucial in their staff. So I think there's a need for very well-informed public speaking information. Certainly my Powerful Public Speaker workshop is my most popular. And that's because people just need those skills so much. So the book is going to be called Powerful Public Speaker. And it's going to be in a similar format to the Quick Guide to Classroom Management. It's going to have little secrets along the way so that it's very digestible and highly applicable and highly accessible.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Thailand, 16 years and one year in China. So Thailand is now home, or you plan to go back to UK?
Yes, Thailand is my home now. I've been here since I was 26 years old. Can you believe? I am now 41 years old. So it's been a long time I've been here. It's a beautiful, beautiful country. Amazing people, very friendly, very nice people, very polite people. The cost of living here is really good. Business is quite smooth over here. You know, it's quite easy to do business over here. International teaching is a really big sector over here. So there's lots of demand for that. So yes, I would say Thailand is my home at the moment. I don't plan to go back to the UK to live. I do plan to stay here for as long as I can.
Wonderful. And it's a global world now with so much of, in the last 16 years, so much of new technology has come in. And nowadays it's all a global village in the real sense for everyone. As I said, there is so much to learn from you, Richard, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to learn from you about all these things through your book, through your podcast, and the new book that is coming in. So what's the best way for them to connect with you?
The easiest way is to go to my website, which is richardjamesrogers.com. So once again, that's richardjamesrogers.com. And if you just do a Google search of my name, Richard James Rogers, you'll see all my social media on there. So my Instagram, Facebook, my website, and other ways that you can connect with me. I'm also open to emails from anyone who wants to contact me as well. So my email address is just info@richardjamesrogers.com.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, AJ. It's been a